That's when I knew. I wasn't family anymore. I was a footnote, a walking wallet. Let me rewind. My name is Owen Marks. I'm 35, and I live in Bozeman, Montana, a place where people know your business before you do. I used to be married to a woman named Camille. She had a daughter, Peyton, from her first marriage. Peyton was 13 when Camille and I got together, and by the time we divorced, she was 18. No kids of my own. But Peyton? I loved that kid like blood. Not in a weird way. In a this is my daughter even if I didn't make her kind of way. When Camille and I divorced, I figured that bond was over. But 6 months later, Peyton showed up on my doorstep with a backpack and red eyes. Camille was struggling, again. Her bio dad, Vince, was out of the picture again. She said I was the only adult who'd ever shown up. That night, she said she wanted to go to Yale. Not just wanted, needed. And I said yes. We made a deal. If she got in, I'd pay. Not just a little. I offered $300,000 over 4 years. Tuition, housing, books, everything. I had the money. I consult for aerospace firms and keep my costs low. No kids, no debt. Just a soft spot for a girl who once called me dad when she fell off her bike. I wired the first round of payments. Camille even sent a thank you text, short, clipped, but polite. Peyton sent me videos of her crying with joy. It felt good for about 2 months, until it started to feel off. At first, it was subtle. Peyton started referring to me as Camille's ex instead of my uncle. She dodged when people asked how she was paying for Yale. She said family helped. Not Owen. Just family. Fine. Whatever. I wasn't doing it for clout. Then came the Instagram post. Her Yale acceptance letter. Captioned, "Thankful for my real family. For the ones who never gave up on me. You know who you are? Blue heart hashtag blessed hashtag Yalebound." The comment that broke me? Some creep thinks paying bills makes him my dad. Block. Under it, Camille replied, "You were never her family. Just a bank account with a beard." And Vince, Mr. Deadbeat himself, had the nerve to write, "Finally exposed." The wannabe father gets the hint. I opened my banking app. My hands were shaking. I canceled the $300,000 tuition plan, pulled back the dorm deposit, sent Yale's financial aid office an email. "I am no longer sponsoring Peyton Rayburn. Please adjust accordingly." Then I put my phone on silent. 6 days later, at 2:17 a.m., 73 missed calls. The last voicemail, "Uncle Owen, please. Please. Yale says I can't register unless I pay $80,000 by Monday. Mom doesn't have it. Vince won't answer. I am sorry. I didn't mean it." And right there, with her sobbing through my speakerphone, I smiled for the first time in weeks. Like and subscribe if you've ever been used by someone who called you family, then dropped you when the money ran out. What city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. By Monday morning, Yale had officially withdrawn Peyton's enrollment. Camille called at 6:43 a.m., voice already cracking. "You destroyed her future, Owen. You know that, right?" I said nothing. She kept going. "Peyton's crying nonstop. She can't eat. She can't sleep. You're punishing a child for telling the truth." I asked her one question. "Why did you let Vince take credit for everything I did?" Silence. Then Camille said the words that hit harder than any insult. "It was easier for everyone." Easier. For everyone. Easier if the man who showed up to parent-teacher conferences and midnight ER trips faded into the background. Easier if Peyton's real dad got to shine now that there was something to brag about. That's when it all clicked. This wasn't just teenage rebellion. It was orchestrated. Camille admitted Vince had been pressuring Peyton for months, whispering poison about me. He said my help was control dressed as kindness. That if she really loved him, she'd cut me off. He made her choose, and she did. But that wasn't even the worst part. 2 days later, Vince showed up at my apartment. Didn't knock. Just banged on the glass like a repo man in heat. When I opened the door, he came in yelling, "You want to act like a big man? Ruin a girl's future over your fragile ego." I told him to get out, but he wouldn't. He started pacing like a caged wolf. "You manipulated my daughter. You tried to buy her love. You think money makes you her dad? You think throwing a few grand makes you family?" I laughed in his face. "Vince," I said, "you didn't throw a few dollars. You threw away 18 years. He lunged at me then, but I was ready. I shoved him back hard, and he hit the wall like a drunk mime. He didn't try again. Before he left, He spat one last warning. You better fix this, or I'll make sure everyone sees who you really are. But here's the twist. I didn't need to do a thing, because the truth was already unraveling. 3 days later, Peyton's grandmother called me, crying. Owen, she said, we didn't know. We didn't know you were paying everything. We thought it was a scholarship. Vince told us. He said he was covering it through work connections. I told her the truth. Every cent, every lie, every betrayal. And just like that, the family flipped. Peyton's aunt, Camille's brother, even her old high school teacher, all started reaching out, apologizing, admitting they believed Vince's version of events. They thought I was a generous uncle, not the sole sponsor of her Ivy League dream. And now that dream had burned to ash because her real dad wanted to feel like a man. What none of them knew, though, was how deep Vince's manipulation went. Until Peyton herself showed up at my office. Hair in a bun, no muck-up, hollow eyes. She said, I know what you did, and I know why. I was wrong. I waited. She pulled out her Yale financial aid forms, and there it was. She'd listed me as her primary sponsor. Not a co-signer, not a donor. The entire financial package, based on my income. When I pulled out, the aid collapsed like a house of cards. Peyton looked at me and whispered, I didn't know it would all fall apart like that. Vince said he had it handled. He lied. To me. To everyone. I didn't say anything. Because what was left to say? She cried for a while. Then she said something I didn't expect. I picked the wrong dad. But it was too late. The next twist didn't come from Peyton. It came from Yale. 2 weeks after I pulled my sponsorship, I got a certified letter. Yale's financial aid office was conducting an investigation. Apparently, Peyton's aid application had several discrepancies. Namely, the income she listed for Vince. He'd claimed to have assets and employment history that didn't exist. He'd forged documents, fake pay stubs, a fake 401k report, even a LinkedIn page showing him as a senior consultant at a Boston-based tech firm. It was all fake. Yale threatened to report the case to the Department of Education for financial aid fraud. I couldn't believe it. Vince had been so desperate to be seen as the hero dad. He committed felony-level fraud just to keep up the illusion. And Peyton had no idea. When I confronted her, she broke. Right there on the sidewalk outside my office, she collapsed in sobs. He told me it was just paperwork, that he had friends, that he knew how to make the system work. I didn't know it was illegal. I believed her, but that didn't mean I was going to save her. She asked me one question. Will you still help me? If I switch to another school? If I cut him out? I paused, looked her in the eye. No, because you didn't just betray me. You believed him, even when he did nothing, even when I did everything. She whispered, I was scared, and I whispered back, so was I. The day I realized I meant nothing to you. That night, my phone blew up again. Camille, Vince, even Vince's new girlfriend begging me to let the past go and do the right thing. But I didn't move a dime. Instead, I filed a report. Not with Yale, with the IRS. You see, Vince had claimed income on financial aid forms that didn't exist. But the IRS doesn't care if it's fake. They audit you anyway. And guess who hadn't filed taxes properly for 8 years? Vince Reborn. The next month, he got audited. They froze his bank account, garnished his wages, what little he had. Even his new girlfriend dumped him once the subpoenas hit. Karma? Not yet. It got better, because someone at Yale leaked the investigation to the press. Local news ran a quiet little story. Bogus Yale sponsorship leads to aid recalculation scandal. It didn't name names, but people in Bozeman talk. Soon everyone in our town knew the truth. At the farmer's market, people avoided Camille. At the gym, Vince got kicked out of his group class. At church, Peyton's old choir teacher asked her point blank, why'd you cut off the man who was feeding you? And Peyton? She vanished from social media. Her Yale dream wasn't just over. It was erased. By October, the fallout had spread like wildfire. Peyton was now enrolled at a local state college, barely affording tuition with a patchwork of scholarships and federal aid, none of which came close to the Ivy League life she'd broadcasted for months. Camille had taken on a second job at Motel Out by the highway. And Vince? He was working part-time at a hardware store in a neighboring town under a fake last name. No more Instagram posts. No more hashtag Yalebound. Just silence. But then came the real betrayal. Peyton's grandmother, Camille's mother, called me crying again. Not because of Peyton, but because she'd found out the truth about Camille. Turns out, Camille had been skimming. Before Peyton's public fallout, I'd sent a few early tuition payments directly to Camille to forward to Yale, back when we were on okay terms and the portal was still being set up. I trusted her. Big mistake. Camille never sent the full amount. She took a cut. Thousands. Claimed processing delays, bank glitches. Yale hadn't confirmed yet. But she'd used the money to cover her own credit card debt and a spa weekend in Jackson Hole. Her mother found the receipts. When confronted, Camille cracked and said she deserved it because she'd sacrificed so much as a mother. I felt sick, not because I lost the money, but because I had spent years thinking I was co-parenting with someone who just wanted the best for her daughter. And now, she'd stolen from her own child's education fund. Lied to everyone. Let her daughter take the fall. But the final twist came on a rainy Thursday in November. I got an envelope. No return address. Inside, a printed-out email chain between Vince and Camille, dated 2 months before Peyton got accepted. In it, Vince proposed a plan. Let Owen fund the whole thing. Let Peyton believe it's from us. Once she's enrolled, we'll ease him out. No drama. No miss. Camille's reply? He's too soft to say no. Let's make him think he's family, until we don't need him anymore. They planned it. All of it. Peyton's shift in tone. The gradual distancing. The public rejection. The captions. The humiliating comments. They scripted it. I sat there staring at those emails for a long time. I wasn't just used. I was set up. They never wanted my love. Or my mentorship. They wanted my money. And when I cut them off, I didn't just ruin their plan. I burned it to the ground. It took me 2 weeks to build the folder. Screenshots. Bank statements. Email chains. PayPal receipts. Venmo transfers. Call logs. Text messages. And the printed-out emails Vince and Camille never expected me to see. I mailed it to 3 places. Yale's fraud department, the local sheriff's office, a family court lawyer I knew from a mutual friend. I didn't want revenge. I wanted documentation. Because truth doesn't scream. It sits in silence, waiting to be opened. That same month, Camille was charged with misappropriation of funds intended for educational use, a felony in our state. They offered her a deal, pay back the money, or go to trial. She didn't have it. Peyton's name was dragged back into the spotlight, this time not as a scholar, but as a casualty in a scandal involving her mother and a fake father figure who never paid a dime. The town of Bozeman isn't that big. Word spread. Fast. The local paper ran a piece titled, "From Ivy League Dreams to Courtroom Nightmares, a Family's Fall from Grace." I didn't speak to any reporters, but someone did. Riley. She wrote a letter to the editor. A public apology. A full-page spread. In it, she admitted she'd let pride blind her. That she let her father's jealousy poison her relationship with the one man who ever showed up. She said, "I called him manipulative, but it was my real father who manipulated me into burning the only real bridge I had." I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in my drawer. Not because I forgave her, but because I'd waited too long to hear those words. She still didn't ask for money, and I didn't offer it. But something changed. People stopped treating me like the bitter ex-uncle. The grocer started chatting again. My barber offered a free cut. The barista wrote, "You're not the villain," on my coffee cup. Camille? She pled guilty. Got 60 days house arrest and a suspended sentence. But she had to pay restitution. Every penny she skimmed with interest. She's still paying it off. Vince? Fired from the hardware store when the IRS audit followed him. Lost his license for unpaid tickets and back taxes. Rumor has it he's living with a cousin in Idaho. Off the grid, off the radar, off the hook. As for Peyton, she stayed at the state college. Got a job in the library. Changed majors from law to social work. She sent me one last email around Christmas. "I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know I see it now. You weren't trying to buy your way in. You were already family. And I threw you out." I didn't reply, because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. They're meant to be remembered as lessons. I took the $300,000 I'd saved for her and started something new. A scholarship fund. Quiet. Local. For first-gen college students in Montana who don't have anyone. I named it after my grandmother, someone who raised me when no one else would. And every year, I read letters from kids who just want one person to believe in them. It's enough. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's peace. And I have it now.